All right. Matthew McConaughey. I drive a Lincoln. All right, we're ready to go.
Let's see this.
That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
This is Joe Howie.
And we're starting off going through the teams of the Big East in reverse order of the coaches poll, just previewing for the season. So that's going to start with our 11th ranked Georgetown Hoyas. The Hoyas coming in last, which is definitely a shock for a program with as extensive a history of success as they do. They finished 15-17 last year, only winning 5 games in Big East play. Coach Patrick Ewing, when you talk about that extensive history of success, you can't talk about that without him. He's going into his 4th season. He's won 49 games and lost 46, so there's certainly a lot on the line for him as a coach. And this might not be the season of success for the Hoyas that they imagined for Patrick Ewing. This is a team that has really been stripped for parts. You've got James Akinjo, who left the team in December and has transferred to Arizona after being Freshman of the Year in 2019. Myron Gardner, Galen Alexander, Josh LeBlanc also left the team at the same time. Then you have Mac McClung, who originally left for the draft, then decided to come back, but not to Georgetown. He'll be playing for Texas Tech this season. And Omar Yurtseven, who has declared for the draft, plus guys like Terrell Allen and Jagan Mosley, who have graduated. So, Joe, when you lose all of these guys, what's Georgetown going to have to do about that this year?
So, first and foremost, I think the two biggest names on that list are Mac McClung and Omar Yurtseven. McClung averaged 15.7 points a game. Yurtseven, the 7-footer, ironically, averaged 15.5 points per game. So that's 30 points combined with everyone else, 58% of their scoring out the revolving door and away from the basement of the Big East. That's going to be tough for Georgetown, especially when you had some talented guard play from McClung and Yurtseven, who was arguably one of, if not the best big man in the Big East last year, a true 7-footer, dominant around the rim. Other than Romaro Gill on Seton Hall, no one else held the paint as well as he did. So I think when you look at the people that have left and the people that are coming in to fill, it's definitely a rebuilding year for Patrick Ewing. And, he's a great player and, he's still working on his coaching. But I think in the long run, they'll be okay. But this is definitely going to be a patchy season for them.
Yeah, it's tough when you lose guys that are that good, but then what makes it tougher on top of it is you lose all of your depth guys too. You go back that 2018 recruiting class for Patrick Ewing for Georgetown, there isn't a single player from that class left for this upcoming season. So when something like that happens, not only are you losing your stars, you're losing the replacements, you're losing the bench players, you're losing opportunities for leadership. You don't have any kind of veterans, so you're going to rely a lot on your younger players. But there are some guys that are coming back. It isn't all lost. You got guys like Javon Blair, Jamarco Pickett, and Qudus Wahab, the sophomore, who I think the Hoyas are expecting a lot from, who are going to be your impact players this year.
Yeah, definitely, Matt. The name on that list that sticks out to me is Qudus Wahab. He played in 32 games and got 7 starts last season. He's going to have to fill that void in the paint that Yurtseven has left. Remarkably, against Seton Hall, he put up a double-double. Creighton, 14 points and 12 rebounds. And, that's pretty notable for, at the time, a freshman who's playing under Omar Yurtseven in the paint. So he had 30 blocks last season, averaged 5.5 points a game. He's going to have to step up and fill some pretty big shoes. Other than that, I really like Jamarco Pickett. He's 6'9", played 32 games and averaged 10 points and 6.3 rebounds. But what makes him interesting is he's 6'9" and plays more of the wing than a forward. He's more of that 2-3 shooting, scoring guard. And, he's long. He resembles almost a Paul Reed from DePaul last season. a matchup nightmare for a lot of the undersized guards in the league. He's going to have to take a big step. And Javon Blair, who's the only true guard returning to Georgetown, you have McClung who's gone. And while, he only averaged 2.4 assists per game, he was a scoring guard similar to Lawan Pipkins from Providence. Not the best distributor, not a true point guard, but, he can bring the ball up and he can score in a variety of ways. Javon Blair is definitely going to have to fill that role this year. And, it's going to be tricky, but these three guys have a lot of weight. They're a nucleus that Georgetown returns. So I think this is where you start if you're Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, this is where you start to rebuild that stability. I mean, obviously, Javon Blair, he's going to be asked to do a lot this season. This is a team that had the second most assists per game in the conference last year, 15, but also averaged 13.5 turnovers, which was 208th in the country. So a team that's going to pass the ball a lot, but high risk, high reward. And Javon Blair is a senior this year. He gives you a little bit of facilitation, but he's not the truest point guard in the world. So you're going to have to rely on some of those freshmen coming in, trying to make a difference. And you get a lot of high variance with those players. It's not the best recruiting class in the world for Georgetown. It was 53rd in the country, middle of the Big East. You got a guy like Jamari Sibley, who's 6'8". He's a big guy. He's the only top 300 prospect that's coming in. But then you got a guy like Jalen Harris, who's coming in. He's 6'2", 166 pounds, who just transferred in from Arkansas, who might be able to fill a little bit of that void at guard. I mean, this is definitely going to be not the best season for Georgetown. And this is a team that scored a lot last year, but also didn't have a lot on defense. Joe, what do you think the expectations should be for Georgetown this year?
I think when you're playing in the Big East and, given the circumstances, I think the expectation is to compete. You want to win a couple of games. I don't think that they will go over 500 in conference play, just given the inexperience of this squad. I think, the player to keep your eyes on is Qudus Wahab. If there's anything that's true to Patrick Ewing and his coaching style that reflects his playing style 100%, is that he can develop players in the post. And we saw it with Omer Yurtseven. We saw it with, who was that guy 2 years ago? He killed the Friars.
Jesse Govan.
Jesse Govan. Oh my God. He was the worst. He could score in the paint. He could stretch the floor, sink it from three. So, Patrick Ewing, he's the type of coach who really develops post players. And Qudus Wahab, you're next in line, buddy. He's going to be the guy that's go-to in the paint. So watch out for him. It's not a completely a wash of a season for Georgetown. You have a lot of other teams in the Big East that lost a lot of talent too. One comes to mind is Marquette. They bring in a stronger recruiting class, and they didn't lose nearly as many players as Georgetown did. But, a rebuilding year for them, to say the least.
Absolutely, especially after how rocky last season was and just how much turbulence there was during the season. This is where you got to start turning things around, build something so that when you got guys coming in next year, you got a guy like Ryan Mutombo. That's a name that should be familiar to everybody. He's a top 100 recruit at center, that big guy coming in next year who's a commit. And Georgetown already has 4 hard commits for next year. So they're getting back on that recruiting. This is that season where you can build momentum to prepare for that youth. But I think certainly not expected to be anywhere near top of the Big East. Do you think this is a team that should be expecting to play in the postseason at all?
I could see them as an NIT team, possibly, maybe a lower seed in the NIT. If it depends on their non-conference too. Obviously, given the circumstances of this COVID season, you're going to have a shorter non-conference. So I think that's where Patrick Ewing really needs to make up some ground before he's even lost ground, if that makes sense. But you got to clean house in the non-conference and then go into conference play with a couple of wins under your belt, just so that you can at least have a shot at some sort of postseason berth, whether it be the NIT, the CBIT. Definitely not an NCAA tournament team. No at-large bid for them. No. But, I hope they prove me wrong, because there's nothing I like better than competitive Big East basketball. But from a statistical standpoint and just seeing the way that their season ended on a 7-game losing streak, I can't imagine they're riding into the season on high momentum.
No. And of course, we're talking about all these postseason tournaments as if they're going to happen. We have no idea what the structure of postseason is going to look like for college basketball this year. So that's going to be something to look at. We also, I mean, here we are. It's early November. We're less than 3 weeks until the season starts, and we still don't know the schedule for Georgetown. We only know a handful of conference games. So obviously, a lot more uncertainty about the season at this point than you would usually expect. And this is a team with a lot of uncertainty about them. Certainly a low floor, but potentially a high ceiling if they can put it all together and build for the future.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
hey, anything can happen in the Big East.
Absolutely. I think this just about wraps up Georgetown. We're going to be back tomorrow with your 10th preseason ranked DePaul Blue Demons. But for the Flex, which you can follow on Twitter at the Flex Hoops, or you can follow either one of us on Twitter at Matt St. Dream or at Joe Howie. But for Joe, I'm Matt, and make sure to tune in next time. This has been the Flex.